Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to race 19 of the Soda Guys Cup Series as we're here tonight for 160 laps of racing in the Bluegrass State at the Kentucky Speedway. I'm Seth Cole alongside of Warren Keith making his Flatout Racing Network debut here this evening. Warren, first off, not congratulations, but welcome rather, here into the booth. You've had some experience here at Kentucky, 160 laps for the Cup cars. What's some of the things these drivers are going to have to tackle here tonight?
Well, definitely the new reconfiguration of Turn 1. It's a little bit more banged than it used to in the past. And, you can run side by side through Turn 1 and 2. But the real problem area is going to be Turn 3 and 4. You get down Turn 3, and you hug that little bit of asphalt strip that's down there. And if you can run that just right, you'll be fine. But a lot of drivers we've seen in practice have been slapping the wall of Turn 4.
Now, we've seen drivers racing here at Kentucky last night in the Rapid Fire Pizza National Series. Here this evening, a lot of drivers did not take time in qualifying, going to be starting mid-pack. A couple of those that kind of jumped to the forefront include our six-time winner in Boyd Hogan. He's going to be starting about mid-pack. How important at Kentucky is it to really have starting track position?
Oh, it's definitely very important, especially off the start. I mean, you're running mid-pack. You've got, the whole pack ahead of you. Dirty air in Turn 1 and 2, dirty air in 3 and 4. Track position is going to be so key tonight, and, that's going to be really nice for strategy, even though the tires might not wear as quick as you may think they do.
Look at our front row here as Brendan Burcroft, who made his debut last week, finishing third in his season debut, is going to be the pole sitter for tonight's race. Of course, Brendan Burcroft coming off a win down the Rapid Fire Pizza National Series at the Indianapolis Road Course, so looking to continue that momentum. And he'll start alongside of Caden Rush, who the last time we saw him, he was in victory lane back at Sonoma. And as we look back here through the remainder of the starting lineup for tonight's race, another thing that we've seen as a kind of a running trend here, Warren, the past couple of Cup races, is we end up having a early yellow flag with these drivers kind of getting used to their setups on the short run, but then we start to settle into a long run. And last night, we had about anywhere from 35 to 45 laps that drivers could make it on fuel. We looking at the same kind of a strategy here for these drivers tonight?
Oh, definitely. You're looking just about where you should be for fuel. You don't want to push it too far, and, maybe the short pit might work for you. So, Boyd Hogan, some drivers in the back, especially Oscar, who's looking to get in on points for playoff implications. Strategy is going to be key tonight. So, yeah, just watch the fuel, watch the tires. You should be good to go.
Obviously, these drivers have had all week to be able to put together their setups tonight for Kentucky. Normally, we see a number of our Cup guys go down and run one-offs in the Rapid Fire Pizza National Series, but last night only one driver did so. That was Ty McWhirter, who's going to roll off 8th place here tonight. We're going to have to wait and see. That extra 150 circuits he was able to turn last night, will it give him some kind of an advantage here tonight in the Cup Series race? We're going to have to wait and see. Of course, these drivers coming off an off week last week as they were able to spend time with their families on the 4th of July. But tonight, we're ready to go back racing in the Soda Guys Cup Series as our race at Kentucky Speedway with Brendan Burcroft on the front row with Caden Rush. It's green.
Everybody clean.
Caden Rush timed that restart perfectly.
Yeah, he did it really good. The outside line really took off. I wasn't expecting that, especially from the marbles from the practice sessions, but everyone's clean through 1 and 2.
That 17 right there of Richard Reagan Jr. on the top side. Of course, last time these Cup drivers were on the track, it was at Pocono, and Reagan Jr. was able to make it on fuel strategy to win that race at the Tricky Triangle. Had a car down there on the apron for a brief moment. I think that's the 19 of Zach York, and he is falling towards the back quickly.
Yeah, he just got a little loose, and that's what I was talking about. 3 and 4 is the real trouble area here tonight, and we seen it in practice. You and me saw it. A lot of drivers have just been complaining of just loose in 3 and 4. And, that should get better as the night goes on, but these first couple laps are just going to be treacherous.
Yeah, it's like skating around, and you were talking about the fact that really these drivers are going to be experiencing that over in 3 and 4, as we see right there. Pole sitter Brendan Burcroft nearly going around, almost got the wall off of 4. I think you mentioned the fact that turns 1 and 2 have actually a little bit more banking for these drivers, that right rear tire to be able to lean into.
Oh, absolutely. It's not like Texas. It's a little bit more narrow, as Tom Drelling actually had a big moment off turn 4 a lap ago. But yeah, it's a little bit more for your tire to hold on to, but you get comfortable with that, and then you go into turn 3 and you forget, oh, where did the banking go? There's no banking. So really have to adjust as you go along on a run, especially when the right rear tire gets a little warm with the sun being out just a little bit longer here today.
There's the 42 of Drailing. He still is up here with the pack, but he dropped all the way back to last car running in the 17th position. Our points leader, Taylor Butcher Benjamin, appears to be having some possible connection issues as he's got Joseph Biscotta looking to his inside for 12th place. And we talked about Boyd Hogan starting mid-pack. Hasn't taken him long to fight his way up towards the top 5. He's all over the back bumper of Ty McWhirter looking for that 5th position.
Yeah, he got lucky with a couple of those cars, holding up some of the field in front of him. With those loose moments, so he's really crawled his way through the field, but now he's got to get into a rhythm. Get down, put your head down, and get to the front of this field. You know he's quick enough to win this race. I mean, we both know it, as he goes a little deep in turn 3 there.
He changes. Richard Reagan Jr. got around Caden Rush. He'll go to the point. He's only made 3 starts so far in his career, but he's got a victory, of course, at Pocono and has led 143 laps, continuing to add to that total here tonight. And I'm looking here at the schedule, and these drivers, they've got about another 6 more races after tonight before the playoffs actually begin. So I don't know what the minimal amount of starts is you have to be playoff eligible, but if it is possible for Richard Reagan Jr. to make enough starts here for the remainder of the regular season, you've got to be looking at him as maybe one of those guys that could get up there and challenge a 6-time winner in Boyd Hogan.
Oh, definitely, especially if he's running how he is tonight. Consistency is going to be very much key here. A little bit of a bump draft there from the 4 to the 00, from Brendan to Caden. That's going to be something, we were going to see tonight as well. How do you work the draft here? The straightaways, especially the front straightaways, just long enough going into turn 1 to hold your speed. So do you put the bumper to somebody and bump them up there? It's a good pass for about 5th on back.
Vincent Arthur looking to the inside of Ty McWhirter. And it's interesting, too, because you and I were documenting during practice about how close the speeds were in practice, about the top 15 drivers all separated by less than a second. We saw the same thing in last night's race after practice was completed, but it was a complete runaway by then race winner TJ Crampton. We're not seeing anybody really be able to gap themselves from the rest of the field right now, as it's only about a half second from first back to second. So are we, based off what we saw in practice and what we're seeing right now, are we going to see a lot more pack racing here tonight at Kentucky?
No, the dirty air is going to play such a big factor today, As you see with Richard, got the lead, and look, he's starting to pull away a gap now, about half a second over Caden Rush. And, as much as the draft, you'd like it to work here, 3 and 4 is such a determining factor. You get a little bit of dirty air as a battle for second. Caden Rush and Boyd Hogan. Boyd Hogan making a huge run to the front of the field here. But just to finish off that point, dirty air is going to be king today. And if you can get past that dirty air like Boyd is, you're going to be really quick.
I mean, he's been able to work his way up already to second place, and we're only 10 laps into this race. And usually at these type of mile-and-a-half tracks, it all comes down to who's got the best long-run setup. These races tend to go into long green flag runs. We end up seeing them have to make green flag pit stops. Boyd Hogan has been one of those drivers that has his car usually set up for the long run, and we're seeing it here. The longer the run goes, the faster that 2-car gets.
Good battle for James O'Brien and Ty McWhirter. I'm watching James. He's making his way through the field just like Boyd was. Not as quick, but, top of the show, we said that strategy may be king. Not when you're passing as many cars as Boyd and James are. You might not have to worry about that at all. So this is really going to throw a wrench in some of these guys' races that said, hey, Boyd's starting in the back. And now look at him. He's almost battling for the lead here on, just early in this race.
I mean, we saw last night TJ Crampton, his debut race. He took his very first checkered flag in the Rapid Fire Pizza National Series. James O'Brien out of Premium Motorsports making his series debut here tonight. So could we see a debut driver sweep the race wins here this weekend at Kentucky as Vincent Arthur continues to march his way to the front? He's now gotten by Brendan Burcroft, move him up to 4th place. So right now, the 2, the 24, and the 15 appear to be the cars that are on the move.
Yeah, that 24 car, he was fighting, a little of the looked like a little bit of a loose situation there earlier in the run, but now that the run's going on, he's starting to crawl his way back up. Dropped off a bit, lost some positions, got the car under him, and he's making his way back up the field. That's a strong 24 car late in this run, or middle of the run at least right now.
Talked about the 47 of Oscar Jensen trying to point his way into the playoffs here tonight. There he is. He just lost a couple of positions, one to Chad Gunisman for 9th, now another one to Larry Reed, who was really strong a few weeks ago at Chicagoland, so dropped Jensen back to 10th. Now he's going to fight Larry Reed for that spot. The gap right now between him and Spencer Tart, who right now would be in that 16th and final playoff position, is 17 points. Tart is not in the field tonight, so a big opportunity for Oscar Jensen to capitalize, as really everybody else behind him points-wise is in a almost must-win situation to get into the playoffs. Guys like Vincent Arthur, Joseph Piscotto, Larry Reed, Ty Cole, and others.
As you see Zach York about to make it 3 wide there, and that's what you need to do for just keep the car clean. You have a huge opportunity tonight, and just keep the car clean, keep everyone else around you clean, and you'll be just fine. But when you have drivers like Zach who are looking 3 wide there, you got to start worrying about other people than just your own race, and that sometimes could be a little bit of a mental nugget in your head.
Zach York, of course, had that near moment off of turn 4 back on the first lap, lost a lot of positions. He's back in 12th place, trying to work his way back up to the front, and another spot picked up by the 15. James O'Brien just made his way around Brennan Burkroff, and Burkroff we saw back at Pocono. He finished 3rd in that race after making his debut. He got the pole here tonight, but he's actually started to fade back quite a bit, so you almost wonder if maybe that 4 car was set up for the short run.
Or, he set it up for the night. We are starting a little bit earlier in the day than you would think you would start. The sun's still out, it's still heating up the track just a bit. If you're Brendan and you set up your car for the night, you're gonna be absolutely trash right now. You're just holding on, hoping for the track to cool down, and once it cools down, we saw it earlier, I think Brendan's gonna work his way back up to the front of the field.
Battle might be brewing for 2nd place. Boyd Hogan's been able to work his way up into that runner-up spot, but Caden Rush has not really let him get away, and that gap is starting to close between the 2 and the 00, so we may have a battle for 2nd before we have a battle for this race lead.
Yeah, and there's battles all over the racetrack right now. I mean, look at the 77, the 4, that's a good battle on track. Go back a little bit farther, and it's a big hornet's nest for 9th, 10th, and 11th. And, even beyond that, 12th, 13th, and 14th, all right there. And those are valuable points, and especially as we're talking about Oscar, we're going to mention him tonight a lot with this point situation. It's going to be really important to make these spots up, but I don't know. It's just going to be keep your nose clean, really.
Back here is the 9 of Joseph Piscotto, and I'm almost wondering what's going on with him, as the last 3 weeks he has gone or he has finished the race out inside of the top 5. He finished 4th at Sonoma, 4th at Chicagoland, and brought it home 2nd place last time out at Pocono. Not exactly up at the front of the field right now in that UniFirst Chevrolet Camaro, as he seems to be struggling early on here. He actually looked like for a moment he may be getting ready to spin off of turn 2, so definitely fighting still a little bit more of a loose condition. And I know that we talk about with the long run that the car is going to get tighter, but there is that possibility too that if you abuse those rear tires, you're going to still feel that loose sensation all the way through the long green flag run.
Absolutely. Turn 1 and 2, a little bit more forgiving now with the repave, which is quite nice, I must say, as a driver. But turn 3 and 4, you still got to baby it. You can't just drive it in there, especially with these downforce configuration we have on the Cup cars now. You could drive it in there like an Indy car and expect it to stick. That's only going to last for like 3 or 4 laps, and once that happens, you're going to start fighting a loose condition as a battle here with Larry Reed. It's just, I don't know. Do you baby the car because you're going to lose a little bit of time, or you just push hard? That's the side you have to make right now.
This is going to be interesting too, because when we began our first round of green flag pit stops last night, we had about 6-7 cars that had hit pit lane, and then a caution came out. Now, these drivers are going to be somewhere about maybe 20 to 25 laps away from absolutely having to come to pit road, but for those that are going to work the calculators and try and calculate this race from checkered flag back to green flag, that decide to maybe come to pit road and short pit, is right now the difference between their fastest lap and the laps they're laying down right now is about 1 second and 8 tenths. they don't want to run the risk of coming to pit road, getting that fresh rubber, but possibly getting put a lap down if we end up getting some kind of a caution like that.
Oh, if you're back in this field, that's not concerning you at all. You short pit. It's not even a question. You short pit here. But if you're at the front of this field, absolutely that's a big concern, because you get trapped a lap down with some of these drivers behind you. That could ruin your race early and make you have to put on the back foot. And some drivers like Richard, Boyd, Caden, they don't want to do that. But for people like Joseph Biscotta, Zach York, you want to short pit and get that track position as early as you can.
After Boyd Hogan got up to second place, it seems like his forward momentum has stalled out just a little bit. Is that because of just how good Richard Reagan Jr.'s car is out in that clean air, or do you think maybe the 2-car used up a little too much of his stuff fighting his way up to the front?
It's a combination of both. And you know what? That's fine right now. If you're Boyd Hogan, you're sitting there and you're going, all right, I've worn my stuff out. That's fine, but I can wear the stuff out the first run. I'm up in second place. So, you have the track position already. So if you're Boyd Hogan, you're sitting there and you're smiling, even though you're probably wrangling a hard race car right now. But you're smiling because you've got all your work done right now, and you're just trying to manage that dirty air.
This group back here, just outside of the top 10. Joseph Piscota just got around Ty McWhirter for 10th place. You got Zach York, Oscar Jensen, and your points leader Taylor Butcher Benjamin back here. And it's interesting that I'm watching this 96 consistently fall back outside of the top 10, since he was the only driver from the Cup Series that raced in last night's event. I'm almost wondering if this might be by design. Yeah, he might be struggling with that race car, but I'm almost wondering too if maybe there was something he learned last night in tire conservation that he's applying here. While it's looking like he may be drifting back, this may be by design.
It could be. It very well could be. And, so we don't know what these drivers are thinking while they're driving. I mean, sure, we can hear race chatter here and there with the scanner, but you don't know what's going on in their head, and we can't really tell you what Ty's doing. But if you're Ty, you know what you're doing. You're sitting there and you're just riding along. But, I think the bigger story right now is your points leader, Taylor Butcher Benjamin. He's back in 14th, and he's having a tough time passing Oscar Jensen. And if you're trying to fight for a points lead, especially when you got people like Boyd Hogan, for instance, who's running you down points, you need to start showing some speed right now. Even though it's early in the race, you still got to start putting positions down, because right now, as we're looking, he's over just about half a lap down. And if we get a good green flag run going here, that's going to be killer to him later in this race.
Because when we had the green flag pit stops last night, drivers that were running towards the tail end of the field, most drivers up towards the front, yeah, they would lose a lap when they came to pit road, but guys that were towards the back when they came to pit road, they'd fall as many as 2 laps down, and that could be the kind of category Taylor Butcher Benjamin could fall into. And you bring up a great point, too, with the fact that, with Boyd Hogan, even though he's about 166 points back from Butcher Benjamin for that points lead, Taylor Butcher Benjamin wants to make sure that he wraps up this regular season championship, because that is valuable playoff points when the playoff standings are reformatted.
Oh yeah. You want to be able to wrap it up early and get it put away underneath the rug, so you don't have to think about it. But when you're doing races like this and you're just hanging back in 14th, I know you might be struggling with a loose race car right now, because off turn 4 a couple laps ago, he was really fighting it. But you really got to start pushing. You can't just lay back and say, "Oh yeah, I got a points lead." That's not the championship way. You got to go up there and fight.
Watching this battle for 4th place between James O'Brien and Vincent Arthur, you saw some smoke lingering in 1 and 2. There it is again in 3 and 4. That's Caden Rush, 3rd place up ahead. That is blinking in and out. However, despite the connection issues he's having, he is running lap times, if not equal, a little bit faster than race leader Richard Reagan Jr. So both he and James O'Brien actually have been the 2 fastest cars on the track the last 3 or so laps.
Yeah, don't look now, but last lap, your top 3 ran about the same lap time. So the tires have pretty much gone away at this point. We're lap 30 into this race. I think a green flag pit stop is really going to change things. And like I said earlier, do you short pit? If you're the top 3 and you're sitting there and you're going, we're kind of stalemate here at about a 0.8 of a second apiece. Do I short pit and gain a little bit of time and, possibly battle for the lead, or do you just sit back and go, okay, well, I'm fine here? It's a real tough question right now for these drivers.
Let's speculate that this race maybe goes green all the way to the end, with knowing that about lap 45, maybe a little bit further, is how far you can go on a tank of fuel. About how many laps early are you thinking would be considered short pitting for these guys?
4. Max 4, because you don't want to go too early, like 8 laps, to where the new tires are just not gonna make a difference at all. So about 4 to about 2. Try to play the math game to your head. Is like, okay, if I think he's gonna pit here, it's a gamble, because you could say I'm gonna short pit, and you start braking, and he starts braking for pit lane, and you're both coming at the same time. So it's a real gamble. You're trying to guess what he's doing, but I'd say at least 4 at most is what you want to bet on.
We had a driver that was just on pit road about a lap ago, and that's the 34 of Ty Cole. And according to the telemetry we've got, it was actually a regularly scheduled stop for him, just a simple 4-tire change. He's back out there, but he is now 2 laps down to the race leader, and you've seen him going around Tom Drayl, and you can definitely see right now the difference between fresh tires and old.
Yep, and that's the thing. That's the real thing, though, because we got cars pitting here. Don't know who it is.
Wait and see who it is that's going to be coming down pit lane here.
Looks like the 77 of Ryan Strunk.
Oh, maybe the 34 coming to pit road has kind of forced the hand of these other drivers that were thinking about short pitting. This is right around the time that we saw drivers last night pitting too. Some were about 35 laps into the run. Some other drivers were willing to stretch it as far as 45 laps. I think a couple of drivers actually were able to make it close to 47, 48 laps before they eventually had to come to pit road. So we'll see. I'm looking at some of these guys up here like Boyd Hogan, Caden Rush, James O'Brien, maybe kind of leapfrog race leader Richard Reagan Jr.
Yeah, possibly. But, you know what? We don't know. Ryan Strunk might be saying, I see what Ty Cole's doing. If a caution comes out now, obviously they're both, in the sand at this point. But if the caution doesn't come out, Ryan Strunk was in the middle of that big gaggle of cars, so right now he's just trying to get clean track, clean air, and you never know, once this pit cycle completes itself, he might be about a second or so ahead of that pack of cars. So, it might be really early, about 10 laps early, but it might pay off for Ryan later in this race.
And just to kind of give people an idea, too, of just how much time you can make up with those fresh tires, in last night's race, the second-place car came to pit road about 8 laps sooner than the race leader. At the time, was 8 seconds back. By the time the green flag pit stop cycled around, that second-place driver was the new race leader, 6 seconds over the driver that was leading before the pit stops began. So, we'll definitely be seeing a huge net gain by Ryan Strunk if these pit stops do actually completely cycle around.
Yeah, I'm going to be watching the timing scoring here. Nothing to Ty Cole, but the real first driver we're going to see is going to be Ryan. He was, pretty decent car early in the run. So once we see a lap time from Ryan, we're really going to see what the fall off here. Oh, wow. He just ran a 30.6 when the leader right now just ran a 32.2. So 2 seconds a lap on new tires. You know what? If I'm a crew chief right now, I'm saying you're seeing that and you're going, holy Toledo. Come down now. I'm not even going to have you stay out that long.
The thing of it here for these drivers, too, though, is, some of these guys are probably planning to come to pit road maybe 4 times. They do have 5 sets of tires that they can put on these cars should they need to. Other drivers, though, might be thinking of the 3-stop strategy and have to stretch it a little bit further to be able to reach that goal.
That's viable. That's viable because, these front runners, I think they might do the 3. They've built up a big enough gap now to where they can do the 3. But some of these guys in the back, they might want to do 4 just because of, like I said, with the Ryan situation, you're gaining so much net time on new tires. That might balance out that last pit stop to where it basically, it kind of balances itself out. So we'll have to wait and see. We've still got a long way to go in this race, but, strategy is going to be so interesting tonight.
Harry Reid in the 32 started mid-pack in this race. We saw him actually back in a huge gaggle of cars in the beginning stages of this one. He's now worked his way up to 6th place. Of course, a driver that was very much in the conversation for the win back at Chicagoland before he got involved in a pit road incident where he was caught for speeding and eventually decided to call it an early night. And behind him, Joseph Piscotto. We wondered, where was this 9 after what he's been able to do the past 3 weeks? He's now up in that 7th position and trying to see if he can reel in Larry Reid. Those two trying to gun for a top 5 position. Right now, the closest battle up towards the front continues to be for that second position. Boyd Hogan, Caden Rush, they've been fluctuating anywhere from about half a second to 6/10 separating them.
42 on pit lane. Tom Drelling now forced his hand to come down. And just a lap or so ago, we saw a big moment from your points leader, Taylor Butcher Benjamin. Him and Zach York had a coming together in turn 3 and 4. Almost wrecked it, but they kept it together. And then about half a lap later came Ryan Strunk passing him by like an IndyCar. So, do you pit now? If you're these guys, do you pit now? I know Tom Drelling said, yeah, I'm pitting now. But if you're the points leader, you come down the next 2 laps. I don't even keep you out there that long.
We've crossed the lap 40 threshold now, so, if you're even on a 3-stop strategy, you'd be able to make it with 2 more pit stops up to this point. You would have to pretty much just come down every 40 laps. So, yeah, to your point, I'd be shocked if we didn't see just about everybody else coming to pit road somewhere here in these next 3 laps.
Just looking through the field here. One driver who's kind of made his way back up a bit late in this run has been James O'Brien. He's catching Caden Rush just a couple tenths a second a lap. Not that last lap. He ran a little bit slower. But he has been slowly reeling in Caden Rush for 3rd place. That 15 car late in the run on old tires, that's a car we're going to have to watch because that thing is really on rails right now.
Yeah, and I don't know what it is here in both this series and the Rapid Fire Pizza series, but it seems like your real-life underfunded teams, they really seem to be good here. We ended up last night having a car from MBM Motorsports to go to victory lane. Of course, a few weeks ago at Sonoma, it was Starcom Racing's Caden Rush that went to victory lane, and you got Premium Motorsports here with that 15 of James O'Brien in his debut, looking awfully sporty and trying to see if maybe he can, in only his first start, put a 1 in the win column. As surprisingly enough, we're at lap 44. No one has hit pit lane yet.
Yeah, I know, it's so weird. I'm sitting here and I'm astonished that we're this far into the run and no one's pitted when you have 3 drivers who have pitted: Ryan, Tom, and Ty. And as we see Ty going right by Caden Rush like he's standing still right now. Godly. I don't know what's keeping these drivers out. Maybe they are just that dedicated to the 3-stop. But if a caution comes out right now, this is going to be really, a real question mark on why did you stay out that long.
There's 2 things that I'm thinking. For one could be they're scared to death of trying to get onto pit road here, possibly getting themselves a speeding penalty, maybe spinning out trying to come to pit road. They don't want to run the risk of that. The second thing I'm thinking possibly as well for these guys is the fact that we saw them slipping and sliding around there on fresh tires at the start of this race. When they come to pit road, that car is going to be an entirely different animal than what it was when they came down pit lane. These drivers out there now, the cars have tightened up. It's probably a little bit more grip. It's turning through the corner the way they want it to. They're going to have to deal with their car the same way they had to deal with it back on laps 1, 2, 3. They don't want to have to deal with that as soon as possible.
Oh, absolutely. And you know what? Driver that's been making his way up through the field here? Oscar Jensen, just about 15 laps ago, he was back about 13th or 14th. He's up to P9. He just got by Brandon Burkhoff, who is actually dropping a little bit more than he wants to right now. And, falling right behind him is Taylor Butcher Benjamin. So, we were talking about earlier in this race, how, you need to work your way up to the front of the field. Well, I could throw that paper out the window because here they come with old tires. Really starting to show their stuff. And maybe the setup they have, babying those tires a little bit more earlier, maybe the cause? We'll have to wait and see. But right now, they're starting to put some decent lap times down compared to the leaders.
It may not be as much about babying the tires, but the fact that you didn't use up your tires nearly as much as the guys up ahead of you, and so you're able to pass them because they are struggling. I mean, you may be struggling too, but not quite as much as your competition, as that battle for second place continues to close up, and I think a big reason for that was because of Boyd Hogan having to let the 34 of Ty Cole around. Now Caden Rush within striking distance yet again, about half a second still separating those two. Behind them, you got a battle. 7th place going on between Chad Gunisman and Joseph Piscotta.
We're going past a little bit farther than I was expecting to go past for the first stint. Flat 50 here on the books. And if you're Caden Rush, you're getting low on fuel. Right now, I would pit this time. Because you know what? You pit this time, right there, that's about a second or so advantage you have over Boyd, and you're going to leapfrog him and not even have to worry about him here. So we'll have to wait and see what the mind games are, especially right now when we're hitting lap 50 and a lot of drivers are planning to come to pit road in the next about 5 laps.
I'm really surprised they've been able to even stretch it this far. 50 laps going to be completed when Richard Reagan Jr. hits the line. And in last night's race, there were a couple of drivers that on the final green flag run went about 47 laps. And even then, they were trying to coast it through the corners to make sure they could make it back to the start-finish line on fumes. So, maybe a little bit bigger of a fuel cell here for these drivers tonight. But I'm really perplexed as to how they've been able to make it this far so far on what they've got in the tank.
As you see, Boyd Hogan now getting past Ty Cole again. So Ty Cole's tires have kind of fell off, and he's pitted, not too long ago, about 20 laps ago now, he's pitted. So a little bit of a minus there. So the early strategy by Ty Cole has kind of negated itself out.
It gives us an idea, though, up here in the booth of just exactly when those fresh tires start to equal out to the drivers that have been able to stay out here for now upwards of 50 laps. Around 20 laps is when we're starting to see that 34 start to fade back. And, Ty Cole's not the fastest car out there as well, so maybe not the best car to judge off of. But if we look here at Ryan Strunk in the 16 machine, he's about to maybe get up there and unlap himself the hard way. He's only about 7.5 seconds behind the 17 of Richard Reagan Jr. 22 of Chad Gunnisman has now hit pit road.
Yeah, and he messed his stall up a big time. He had to back up just a bit in the stall, so a little bit of a costly stop here for Chad. And he's going to get 4 fresh Goodyears, full tank of Sunoco fuel, and he's out and away, almost coming close to that inside wall after awkwardly parking the car in pit lane. I don't know what the strategy was there. I guess he almost missed his pit stall, but costly stop, a little bit longer, 48-second pit stop there.
And that was from the 8th position, I believe. He came to pit road, so that's going to, at least when the pit stops cycle around, probably cost him a spot at least up inside of the top 10. A driver that is on the move all of a sudden. I don't know where this came from, but Taylor Butcher Benjamin. I mean, the last time we looked at him, he was running back around the 11th position. He's been able to get around Zach York, Joseph Piscotta, and of course with Gunnisman pitting, he's now up to 7th.
And that's a car I told you it was really going to be good on old tires, and I said it just a few laps ago. He's really pushing his way through the field, I may say, as Brendan Birdkoff on pit lane. First pit stall all the way at the end, and there he goes, sliding into his pit box. So green flag pit stops are now starting to really ramp up here.
McWhirter also into his pit stall. Looks like he may have overshot his box just a little bit. Had to back up that Toyota Camry. So that's going to cost him a little bit of time as Burcroft down and away. Here comes some more drivers to pit road. The 9 of Joseph Piscotta, the 47 of Oscar Jensen.
So you'd wait to see your 20 car pitting in this time. Hearing over the scanner. So Chris Hansen coming in from P9. He'll bring his number 20 Joe Gibbs Racing Toyota Camry down pit lane, along with the number 11 of Taylor Butcher Benjamin.
24 of Vincent Arthur has also hit pit lane, coming in from the 4th position. Actually make that 5th, as he had lost 4th place a couple of laps ago to James O'Brien. But our drivers that have been running 1st through 4th here, we're still waiting to see when they're going to come to pit road, as 17 might be indicating he's coming to pit lane this time. He was running awfully low there through 1 and 2. Let's see if he's going to make the left-hand turn here onto pit lane this time around, and nope.
I'm so surprised the top 3 are staying on as long as they are. This is crazy.
I'm wondering, too, what's the target lap that they're looking for? I mean, obviously, I don't think they can make it to lap 80. I don't think they can do a one-stop. No. So they're obviously thinking a 2-stop here. So do they maybe come to pit road on lap 60 and then split the last 100 laps in half and come in, 50 laps into the next run or something like that? Is that the kind of strategy they're thinking of?
It could be, as we have our leaders down pit lane now. 17 and the 2 both coming down, and the 15. The only driver to stay out there, Caden Rush, he's going to put another lap down, and that's going to be costly because he's going to lose a lot of track position here. He should have came down with the other 2. But right now, leader on pit lane, Richard Reagan Jr.
We've got 2 Fords and a Chevrolet on pit road this time as Richard Reagan Jr. is going to hit his marks. Larry Reed stays out as well with Caden Rush. See if Rush, no, he's going to stay out another lap there in that 00. And, when we think about it too, Caden Rush, he's already won this season at Sonoma, so he can kind of go a little bit outside of the box in terms of strategy, do what's different from everybody else. We're going to have to see if this strategy obviously plays out to his benefit. With what we've seen, the amount of time that fresh tires can make up, it almost seems like not the case. But if he stretches it a little bit further, if you consider the strategy we were just talking about going 60 laps, then 50 laps before you make that final pit stop, if he can go a little bit further, come to pit lane a little bit further out on the next pit stop, he's going to have fresher tires in the final 40 or so laps of this race. That might be what he's thinking of.
It very well could be, and he's also trying to play the caution game here. We've seen this time and time again. One driver stays out, trying to run as far as he can, because if the caution comes out right now, he's trapped everyone from fourth on back a lap down. So he's trying to play the caution game. I call it the Stenhouse trick, trying to stay out as long as you can. But I don't think that's going to work out for him. As actually one tight little thing I want to point out here. Ryan Strunk, he pitted from about P11, right? He's all the way up in P4 ahead of Richard Reagan Jr. So those fresh tires, P3 now, has really benefited for him. But the only problem is he's pitted 27 laps ago, and those fresh tires are now gone. And here comes Richard Reagan Jr. going to pass him by like a steam train down the backstretch.
There's a bunch of drivers back there that are going to be able to capitalize. Richard Reagan Jr. just now going by. Boyd Hogan's only about 2 seconds back. Vincent Arthur about a second back. And what we've seen with fresh tires gaining anywhere from 1.5 to 2 seconds per lap, he's going to start fading back. But at least for the moment, that strategy worked out for him in gaining him track position as opposed to where he was before these pit stops began. As Caden Rush continues to stay out, so too does Zach York. And there you see Richard Reagan Jr. Now, you mentioned about the fact that Caden Rush had just about everybody trapped the lap down. Not the case now, as Richard Reagan Jr. is going to unlap himself.
Yeah, and, the Ryan Strunk effect is going to really magnify itself here, because now there is no lap to give. Caden Rush is on the same lap now as, Richard Reagan Jr., and that's just going to be even worse for him. He was going to pit. If he pitted with these guys, he'd be up there with them. Now that he's not going to pit at all, like this, he's going to be all the way down in about 9th or 10th, I would even imagine, after this pit cycle goes around. So Caden Rush, I don't know what the thought is almost getting into the 96 there. I just don't understand the thought process here off that 00.
Whatever the thought process is, he can't change his strategy now. He's fully committed to whatever it is, because if he changed up his strategy now, he's going to find himself trapped, if not 1, maybe 2 laps down to these race leaders that are out there on fresher tires.
Oh, absolutely. And he's just getting freight trained. As Scanner Rated from the 00 is, he's just trying to hold on the tires here. I don't know. I just don't get it.
Zach York has also stayed out in the 19. There's the 32 of Larry Reed on pit road, and seems to be a little bit longer of a pit stop there for the 32 car, as they will finally drop the right side. Now they go around to the left. I don't know if he had maybe a little bit of a moment getting onto pit road or not. Caden Rush finally is going to hit pit road in the 00. We'll see if Zach York in the 19 is going to come down here with him, and indeed he does. So this will turn the race lead back over eventually to the 17 of Richard Reagan Jr.
I tell you what, Caden Rush really hit pit lane hard on old tires. He was slipping and sliding his way in. Oh my, that was a big moment for Caden.
The good news is he's going to be able to get 4 fresh, so he can use them up as much as he needs to coming down to that commitment line. But, when we saw him before the pit stops began, he was running in 3rd place. Right now, he has already fallen down to 7th. Talked about Ryan Strunk. How about Tom Drayling? He was another driver that was one of the first to hit pit road here for the Cycle Green Flag pit stops. He's been able to work his way now up to 6th position, but much like Strunk, he's been out there for 25 laps, so he'll start falling back momentarily when he gets reeled in by guys like Chad Gunisman, Caden Rush, Joseph Piscota. But for Strunk and Tom Drayling, at least right now, the strategy has definitely worked out, because these are drivers that were running back 11th, 12th, 13th position, somewhere in that area. They're now up inside of the front to late second half of the top 10.
little tidbit there. Catching up on the Larry Reed story of him having a long pit stop. He's actually retired from the race, so something happened with that 32 car. We just don't know what it is yet. We're going to try to figure out what happened. As actually battle for the lead starting to heat up a bit, about 0.3 of a second now between Richard Reagan Jr. and Boyd Hogan. So we saw Boyd use up those tires early in the race, but now he's got fresh tires and equal playing ground, and he's right there with Richard.
Of course, these drivers also had about 50 laps to be able to figure out what their car is capable of doing. This is an open setup league, so Boyd Hogan, he was able to figure out what adjustments he was going to have to make to that race car to be a little bit faster than the 17. And whatever the adjustment was, it has worked. It's now 2 car length separation going through 1 and 2 between last time out's winner Richard Reagan Jr. and 6-time winner Boyd Hogan.
Yeah, Boyd's really managing that dirty air through 3 and 4. I mean, look, and he's just closing in. He's running a little bit higher in line. Good strategy there. He's getting out of that dirty air, and he's going to have a good run off turn 4 and maybe able to set up the pass back into turn 3 if he gets close enough off turn 2.
And I can't tell you the number of times here at the mile-and-a-half tracks that Boyd Hogan's been one of those few drivers to go up to that second groove and actually make up ground, make passes. He did it back at Charlotte to take the race lead at one time. He did it at Kansas as well, and right now looks like he's trying to find that exact same situation here at Kentucky. Now, you mentioned about the fact that turns 1 and 2, not really a whole lot of passing goes on there, so are we seeing 3 and 4 as the place he would try and capitalize with something like that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We got another car pitting in again. I believe it might be Ryan Strunk or Ty Cole. We just heard it over the scanner. But yeah, no, definitely. Turn 3 and 4 is the part of the track you're going to want to try to adjust your line on, as is indeed the 77 of Ryan Strunk back down pit lane. 36 laps after his last pit stop. But, you know, just that line in 3 and 4, and you can make up ground. But as we see, Boyd now getting back on the tire tracks of Richard, so just buying his time here.
We'll have to see. The 17 was actually starting to gap himself on the long run back to Boyd Hogan, so we'll see if Hogan is really going to have to take advantage here on the early run before Richard Reagan Jr. finally finds his long run speed. As another thing these drivers are going to have to deal with in just a few moments is going to be slower traffic. Right now we have 11 cars on the lead lap. Ty McWhirter, Chris Hansen, Zach York, Ryan Strunk, who we just saw on pit road, and Ty Cole are all off the lead lap. Taylor Butcher Benjamin was that car you saw on the same straightaway as the race leader. He's about maybe 2/3 of a straightaway away from getting put a lap down. And there's Strunk coming off of pit lane. The thing I'm looking at here with Ryan Strunk is, you know, he last came to pit road back around lap 35. He pitted again 36 laps into this run. So if that's the case of what his strategy is, we're going to see him on pit road at least 2 more times in this race if he's going to be pitting every 35 laps.
Oh, yeah, he's dedicated to the 4-stop now. I mean, he's put himself in that boat to where you're like, okay, well, the fresh tires obviously are working out. I mean, credit where credit's due. He went up to 4th place, you know, and what's to say that he kept that track position? He can gap himself up a little bit more. Who knows? But that's interesting that he's going to run that 4-stop, and it might work out for him. That I'm sitting here thinking about it. So that's actually really nice that that 77 car might actually work out with that 4-stop.
Ryan Strunk, of course, a few weeks ago was the points leader. Failed to make quite a number of starts about 4 weeks ago, and now has fallen down to 4th in the standings. But he does have a nice cushion between himself and that cutoff line of 16th in the standings. It's about 148 points. And right now, I'm looking in terms of lap times. Fastest car on the track, no surprise, is Caden Rush, because he's got about anywhere from 6 to 10 lap fresher tires than the 4 drivers ahead of him. But that 15 of James O'Brien has been the fastest car on track here of our top 4, the last 3 to 5 laps.
Absolutely, and to believe it or not, last time by, Caden Rush actually beat Ryan Strunk, and Ryan Strunk just pitted, so Caden's got some pace in that 00, and he's back up to 5th place, but, you know, he's about to catch James O'Brien here in about half a straightaway, so Caden Rush, you know, we were sitting here and we're going, what's he doing? What's he doing? This might work out for him, and if it does, I'm going to quit my job, because I don't understand how that worked, but it has, and he's catching up to James O'Brien, so I don't know. I don't know.
Well, the thing we got to look at here is the gap between himself and the race leader, which is about 11 seconds. We'll have to see just how long it's going to take for him to cut that advantage down, because if he is on the strategy of coming to pit road only one more time when most of these other guys are going to have to come to pit road maybe 2 times before the conclusion of this race, I mean, it might work out, but as we saw before, when we saw Ty Cole in the 34 car on fresh tires, we saw all of a sudden he stalled out. All his momentum stalled out because the tires equaled out. It's a question of when does that 00 reach that point?
It's going to be well after the top 2 do. It's going to be that teeter-totter game that you love to see on these mile and a half tracks, as indeed he goes by. He's going to get 2 positions here for one. He's about to pass James O'Brien, and now he's on the back bumper of Vincent Arthur. So 2 for 1 for Caden Rush, as he's now up to 3rd place once again.
This might actually help James O'Brien out, because this opens up the door for him to make a move down low. A little contact there between Caden Rush and Vincent Arthur, and I find that a little interesting because it looked like last time by through 3 and 4, Vincent Arthur came down to kind of block that 00.
Yeah, a little bit of a a little bit of a favor there. And over the scanner, the 24 not very happy. You know, he didn't really like that contact, but, you know, give credit to the 00 there. He's flying right now, and the 24 and the 15 really have nothing to give there.
The gap we last checked was 11 seconds from race leader Richard Reagan Jr. back to Caden Rush. After making that pass from 5th up to 3rd, he's now cut it down to 9.5 seconds. And the gap between Richard Reagan Jr. and Boyd Hogan, that has opened up. As a matter of fact, I think that's the biggest gap that there has been for the race lead here today. It was anywhere from maybe 7 to 8 tenths that Richard Reagan Jr. had over Boyd Hogan on the last run. He's now opened it up to almost a full second, as he's having to deal now with the FedEx Toyota of points leader Taylor Butcher Benjamin.
And I think half of it is they were just biding their time racing, and then they see the split to the 00 is closing ever so slightly each lap. And I think now Richard's kind of put his head down. He's like, okay, I got to put some quick laps in here. His last time by, he ran a 32.0, just about dead. And, you know, so it's a little bit quicker than what he was running just a couple laps ago. So Richard putting his head down, and he's just slapped Taylor Butcher Benjamin.
Tom Drayling, the 42, on pit road. Regularly scheduled stop for him, as both he and Ryan Strunk were the first 2 on pit road to start the first round of green flag pit stops. And you know, just based off of when these drivers last came to pit road, if we're looking at someone like Richard Reagan Jr., Boyd Hogan, we're going to probably see them on pit road somewhere in the next 40 or so laps. Well, actually, no, I would say it's actually a little bit sooner than that, probably about 30 to 32 laps from now. But Caden Rush, he was able to stretch it about, I think it was 66 laps, 66, 67 laps. So we may not see him on pit road for another 50 laps if indeed he's going to stretch it that far again.
Yeah, absolutely. He might stretch it well into the 100s of the 160 lap race. So definitely a 2-stop in the cards here for Caden Rush, and possibly for Richard and Boyd. But some of these drivers behind him, like a Piscata, Burkhoff, I think they're dedicated to the 3-stop here. So, you know, how that teeter-totters and balances out, who knows? But we'll have to see. As the next driver down pit lane is going to be Chad in a few laps, because he's on lap 31 of his run, and he was the first car of the main pack to come down pit lane. So expect to see him in the next 10 laps maybe.
Richard Reagan Jr., after getting around Taylor Butcher Benjamin, the gap's actually closed up again between himself and Boyd Hogan, and now he's right in the middle of what's a budding battle for the 7th position between Brendan Burkroft and the 47 of Oscar Jensen. That's just going to allow that 2-car to close in even more. And, you know, if you think about it, too, those first 45 to 50 laps before we had the green flag pit stops, Richard Reagan Jr. was enjoying clean air, wasn't having to deal with traffic. Now that he's in the middle of traffic here, wonder if maybe he had his car set up for that, or if this is really affecting him speed-wise and allowing Boyd Hogan to close in.
It's that dirty air. You know, he was in clean air for most of the night, and now that lap traffic is becoming a problem, that dirty air is going to affect that 17 car. And as we've seen before, Boyd must have set his car up for dirty air, because look at the run he's going to get off turn 4 on the 4 and 47. He's probably going to clear both of them by turn 1 at this rate.
What about maybe looking to the inside 3 wide? Instead, he'll go to the inside side by side with Oscar Jensen. Jensen was trying to take 7th from Brendan Burcroft there on the front straightaway. And if we continue to update about Caden Rush, he is now a little less than 8 seconds back as he gives way to the fresher tires of Tom Drayling. He's got, looks like about maybe a straightaway and half a turn before he'd get up there to Boyd Hogan in the 2 car, currently running in that 2nd position. But we're more than halfway home in this race. We're going to be closing in on what we're assuming is going to be the final round of pit stops here that will more than likely decide our race winner. We're going to step aside for a quick commercial break. You won't miss a thing. We're going to go FRN side by side. Welcome back here to the Soda Guys Cup Series as we're racing here tonight at the Kentucky Speedway. So far, we have run 93 going on to 94 laps, clean and green. And Warren, as a result, we've only got 5 cars currently on the lead lap.
Yeah, our top 5 are absolutely flying through this field. And Richard Reagan Jr., Boyd Hogan have been doing work. It's not just clean and dry, cutting up at the front of the field. They've been having to pass a lot of lap cars this race. And, you know, right now, they're both on equal footing ground because the gap has opened up since the commercial break to about almost a second again. So, Richard Reagan Jr., just that little bit of a accordion effect that, you know, traffic brought Boyd back. Now they're back in clean air. Richard's been able to back it up just again.
And this is a statement being made by Richard Reagan Jr. in that 17 because we saw him last time out at Pocono go to victory lane on a fuel strategy call, which Pocono is very well known for, but we were kind of wondering, you know, what happens if we set him up against Boyd Hogan? Because Hogan didn't take part in that Pocono race. Well, here tonight, we're definitely seeing the case. Boyd Hogan has not let the 17 out of his sight, but he just hasn't been able to get to the back bumper.
Yeah, he hasn't, and, then comes what I said earlier. We're at that point in the race. If this is indeed going to be the last pit stop for these front runners, which I expect it to be if they're going to commit to the 2-stop, do you short pit? Is this the point of the race where you say, okay, I saw what happened in the last pit stop cycle. What can I do different this time? And obviously, if you're Caden Rush, that 8-second gap is now built to 9. So that didn't work out. So if you're Boyd, if you want to win this race, it's going to get done on pit lane and that first lap out in fresh tire. So short pit for Boyd. That's my call for the end of the race here for your the 2-car.
Yeah, these guys, Richard Reagan Jr., Boyd Hogan, James O'Brien, who's running back and forth, they came to pit road right around the lap 60 mark with 100 laps to go. So it's a question of, do they split this right in half and come to pit road somewhere around lap 110? Do they maybe try and go another 60 laps and then have the fresh tires for the remaining 40 laps? Or do they come to pit road 40 laps into the run, which would be right around this time, and have 60 laps that they'd have to run on their tires towards the checkered flag? So could see a lot of varying strategies here for our drivers up inside of the top 7, top 8, who all came to pit road around the same time on that last round of green flag pit stops.
Yeah, it's another thing you have to put in your head if these drivers in Kentucky is not, a mental track, but apparently tonight it's becoming a mental track as battle for 9th and 8th position. It's Oscar Jensen and Taylor Butcher Benjamin. This has been a battle that's been brewing the whole race. These two have not been able to get away from each other, even off the pit road cycle. And right now they're bumper to bumper going into turn 3. So it's a beautiful race that they're having here. And, even deep in the field in this this series, you have just close racing all over the place. And that's what's awesome. Is almost a little bit of a side drive contact off turn 4 there. So good side-by-side racing for about a whole lap here as they head back into turn 1.
We talked about earlier how it seemed like Taylor Butcher Benjamin was struggling. He was running way outside of the top 10 as Chad Gunnisman, you mentioned he was going to be on pit road momentarily. He is now brought the 22 to pit lane. But Butcher Benjamin is running the 8th position. This has really been his kind of moniker this entire season, is while he's not necessarily running up there towards the front, up inside of the top 5 week after week, he's running consistently enough ahead of drivers behind him in the points that he's able to continue to grow his points lead. I mean, Chad Gunnisman's on pit road right now, but he was running back around the 11th, 12th position. Zach York, who is behind him in points, 3rd in the standings, he is 10th right now. So he's got 1 or 2 positions that he continues to run against his competition, finish just ahead of them, doesn't allow them to be able to close up the points gap on him in the regular season standings.
And I tell you what, looking at the timing screen, you see what I'm seeing?
Yeah.
The dinner bell just started ringing. Here come everyone down pit road. Vincent Arthur, the 00 down pit lane. So everybody now saying, okay, here we go. Final pit stops. 22 pitted. Everyone's coming down now.
Really interesting that Caden Rush is actually one of those drivers that's actually going to do the short pit. So he went and stretched it the farthest he could go on the first cycle of green flag pit stops, but he's one of the first guys, along with Vincent Arthur, up inside of the top 5 to hit pit road here for the what we would call money stop, the final pit stop of the evening.
And only at lap 103, so these guys are expecting and we know Caden can do it. We've seen him do it in the first run, so Caden can stretch this, everybody, to the end. We've seen it. He's going to probably do it. But he's running 58 laps on this next run here. So this is early if you're going to make the money stop. I don't know. We'll see how this plays out, but we've known Caden can stretch his field pretty nicely after that first run.
If we go back to when we were comparing Ryan Strunk, when he was trying to fight his way up through the field with fresh tires, it's around lap 20 that those fresh tires start to go away and equal out to drivers that have been out there for upwards to 40, 45, even 50 laps on their sets.
Yeah, that's where the 00 strategy might, hit a wall. But, the way we've seen the racing, especially earlier in this run with the 47-11 almost making contact, you could get a weird late race yellow and the next thing you know, that 0-0 might not look so dumb.
Know what happened if maybe Vincent Arthur may have overshot his pit stall or something, but both he and Caden Rush came to pit road on the same lap. Right now, Caden Rush is running in 8th. Vincent Arthur is running all the way back in 13th. He just got around Ty McWhorter for 12th, but he definitely lost a lot of ground on the 0-0 right there when they both had come to pit road at the same time.
Yeah, we didn't really get to see what happened there, but you're absolutely correct. He came in after Chad Guinnessman came down pit road, but yet they almost came out the same time. So I don't know what held the 24 up, but whatever it did, it has dropped him like a rock back down to 12th place. And, it's going to hurt his chances, maybe, and might keep him a lap down if he's not careful.
Right now, Caden Rush is 1 lap down in 8th. He's got about 2.5 seconds before he gets up to Oscar Jensen and Taylor Butcher Benjamin. As soon as I say that, Butcher Benjamin is on pit lane, so he's making his final pit stop here on lap 107.
Another car on the scanner saying pitting. I don't know who that is. We're going to keep an eye out to who it might be. But, we said earlier in this race that, you see these guys doing three stops, 4 stops. Little do we know that, this might be a 2-stop race, It's just so hard to judge what they're thinking. You might start the race off with a short pit and think, I'm going to go 3 stops. And then you find out that isn't the case. And you're like, yeah, well, might as well go 2 and stretch this middle stint out. So, interesting strategies all over the board tonight.
It's Ty McWhorter that indicated he was coming to pit road in the 96. He's been struggling here tonight, which really surprised me. He was one of the guys I was looking at possibly being one of our favorites this evening, since he had already turned 150 circuits in last night's event here at Kentucky. But, it's an entirely different monster when you're driving an Xfinity car as opposed to a Cup car.
Oh, yeah, the downforce is different, the side forces, the roll, the weight, everything's different between the Xfinity and Cup. You could be great in an Xfinity car and might not be good in the Cup car, and it might be the vice versa, So, whatever you may do in an Xfinity car will never translate to a Cup car. There's like another car down pit lane.
You talked about Ryan Strunk committed to that 3-stop strategy. This is his final pit stop of the day in the 77 car, and it really hasn't looked like that 3-stop strategy has really worked out the way he had planned. Looked like the 2-stop strategy was the way to go. It all just depended on when you decide to bring your car to pit lane. Brendan Burkroff in the 4 car is on pit lane now as well.
Yeah, so here we go. Money stops for some of these drivers. See what Brandon Burkhoff has done. That's, what a disappointing run. Oh, it was the 77 almost spins it coming out of his pit stall. What a disappointing run for Brendan. He started, well up in the field, and then the next thing you know, he's just falling back and then he's 11th place. I thought he had a car that could be set up for the nighttime, but I don't know what's, maybe missed the mark today with the setup, but that 4 car has just not been as strong as he usually is.
Yeah, and it's really surprising, too, because, this is his 2nd straight pole of the season. He had the pole at Pocono as well, finished 3rd place. And in that Pocono race, we had temperature fluctuations. The track temp went from 90 degrees up into the 120s. I mean, we were double or triple digits for pretty much the entire second half of that race. And he did very well adapting to that. You'd think with the cooler conditions here tonight that, the constant temperature that he would actually do really well as also, but he has not been really adapting here this evening to Kentucky. And to your point, may have missed the mark on his setup, as Joseph Escoda from 5th place is now going to come to pit road. I believe Chris Hansen in as well in the 20 car. And I'm looking here, we're getting closer and closer to that target lap that some drivers, if they were splitting this race in half, it would be about right now. If you're Boyd Hogan, you have to come to pit road before Richard Reagan Jr. does. They came to pit road on the same lap last time. I don't think the 2 car can afford to do that now.
No, absolutely. You have to figure it out. As here comes the 0-0 Caden Rush by Boyd. That's not for position, folks. That's just Caden going back around off his lap down. But just a few laps ago, we also saw Oscar Jensen for a 4-tire stop, so he's made his final stop. But yeah, if you're Boyd, like I said, you got a short pit, because right now you're 1.4 back. This is the biggest lead we've seen all night. So if you're going to want to get it done, you better start planning right now on how to get it done.
Caden Rush getting around Boyd Hogan and now about to unlap himself from Richard Reagan Jr. This says to me that possibly when the 17 and the 2 come to pit road, this will probably cycle Caden Rush to the race lead. The question is just how big a gap is he going to have as, look at this, 17 and 2 on pit road, same lap again.
Yep, and like I said earlier in the race, you go back and look at it, I said it was going to be a mind game, You short pit, you start braking for the pit road, and you see the guy in front of you do it, and you're like, oh no. So this is the exact situation. This is going to have to come down to if you don't slide the pit stall or anything. So here we go, money stop.
James O'Brien is going to come in as well. What a great job here tonight in his debut, as he's been in the top 5 here for the last 100 laps or so. Third place is where he pitted from, and Caden Rush has gone around and taken the race lead away from Richard Reagan Jr., who has not even come off of pit road. So now the question is, we know that Caden Rush, when he came to pit road, the fuel window was open to make it the rest of the way. He pitted back around lap 100. Can he manage the gap between himself and the fresh tires of Richard Reagan Jr. in these final 46 laps? You wouldn't think it, but it actually takes quite a bit of time for these drivers to get around and complete these circuits. So it seems like it would be enough time for the 17 if he is able to have maybe about less than 15 seconds separation between himself and that 00.
Short answer, no. That 17 will be on him faster than you think you will be. The last time Caden Rush pitted was 15 laps ago. And you might say, wait, Warren, hold on, 15 laps is not that long ago. It is when you're running 31.5s, and I bet you right now we're going to see Richard Reagan Jr. run a 30, somewhere in the 30s. So this is going to be tight, if you're Caden. But I think you have to build a bigger gap than just 12 seconds. Because right now, right there, that lap alone, a second gone. A 30.1.
It's only 2 1,000ths off his fastest lap, talking about Richard Reagan Jr.
So, no. Short answer, no. Caden Rush is not going to be able to hold on to this with those older tires.
Of course, if a caution comes out, it'll be about 10 laps from now. That could be an entirely different story, but you saw right there the fresh tires of Ryan Strunk, who was 2 laps down. He just unlapped himself to put himself only -1, getting around race leader Caden Rush, and you can just see there the gap continues to be the same, about 0.8 of a second from Richard Reagan Jr. back to Boyd Hogan. So your answer that they're going to get up here and they're passing Caden Rush. Right now, though, if you're Boyd Hogan, what else is there that you can possibly do outside of hoping the 17 makes a mistake?
I don't know. Because, the way we've seen tonight, these two have just been on such an equal playing field to where it was going to have to be the short pit strategy to get the lead. And it did not happen for the number 2 of Boyd Hogan. So, if you're Boyd, you're just sitting there and you go, what do I have to do to get to the back bumper of the 17 car? He's been able to do it in traffic. Maybe that's the way to do it. But the way we've seen tonight, traffic's been so strung out and far in between. It's going to have to take a restart or something for this 2 car to even be near a shot. But, I bite my words. He's gaining the gap a little bit off turn 4 there, but we saw earlier that 2 car was very strong at the beginning of the run and started to fall off late. So I don't know. It's gonna have to take a restart, in my opinion, to get that 2 car to win.
These two are over a second faster than Caden Rush. So I was thinking if they got up to the 00, how much of a fight would he put up to be able to hold them off for the race lead in second place? But seeing the lap times, I'm not sure he'd be able to even have the tires to hold them off at all. See the 42 of Tom Drayling that they're reeling in here. He is going to have to come to pit road before this race is over, as will the 19 of Zach York, to make their final pit stops of the day. But everybody else up to this point is good to go the rest of the way on fuel. And I don't want to jinx it, Warren, but we've run over 120 laps here, clean and green. Just how much of a monkey wrench would a late race caution throw into all these guys' strategy?
It would blow the gears. It would just blow up the whole engine because we got I think it might be the 42. You just called it, back down pit road. It would just be such a big wrench in these guys' plans. And you know what? If you're sitting there and you're Caden Rush and you see a yellow flag come out in the next 10 laps, go to Vegas, because at that point you've got yourself a lottery chance of winning this race. And you've trapped most of the field up to 5th place a lap down. So the wave rounds wouldn't be a problem. So yeah, it'd be a big monkey wrench, especially for people like the 17.
No doubt. I would think that, right now, Caden Rush has been out there for 22 laps. Richard Reagan Jr. and Boyd Hogan have been out there for 8 laps. So I think if we get somewhere to where the 17 and the 2 have been out there, even for 15 laps, and a caution were to come out, everybody's going to come to pit road because most drivers have only used up 2 sets of their tires. There's a couple that have used up 3 sets, and boy, look at just how quickly these guys have reeled them in.
Boyd Hogan is 3 wide for the lead off turn 4. Really got held up by Caden Rush. There was Richard Reagan Jr. They're 3 wide across the line. Boyd Hogan still trying to fight on the inside, and it's still going to be 3 wide in turn 1 for the lead. Caden Rush relinquishes it, and Richard actually holds on the high side. Good run from the 17, but the battle still rages on off turn 2.
Boyd Hogan all over the back bumper of that 17. A couple of Mustangs battling it out potentially for the race win here tonight. And this is the closest that Boyd Hogan has been to the back bumper of that 17 car all night long. It's his, pretty much, I guess, his only opportunity up to this point to try and see if he can wrestle this lead away, looking for his league-leading 7th win back to the inside in turn 1.
Boyd is as he gets loose and almost wrecks the 17. Big save there from Boyd Hogan. But he's making me eat my words. Maybe he doesn't need a caution. Maybe he has been just saving his stuff. But man, oh man, what a moment off turn 2. Getting down to the end of it here in this race. 125 and 160. It's really starting to heat up now for the lead.
Of course, that allowed Boyd Hogan to close in because that kind of threw the 17 Richard Reagan Jr. off his rhythm. Not only did he get held up behind the 0-0 of Caden Rush, but then he also kind of forced up to that second lane, which he hasn't really run all night long. So he had to kind of figure out if his car was capable of running that outside line off of turn 2, which was allowing him to be able to pass and keep the lead from Boyd Hogan. Now, as he's able to settle back into a rhythm, we'll see if the daylight will open up again between the 17 and the 2 car, as we are at 34 laps to go, and we know that these 2 drivers, now they've got what they've got. Barring a caution, it's mano-a-mano. No excuses anymore, because there will not be any more pit stops for these 2.
Yeah, and you just got to think if that little surge there from Boyd was maybe what he had, because now the gap's kind of, steadied off at 0.3 of a second, but off turn 4, here comes Boyd again. He got a good run. He's running a little bit more aggressive line through 3 and 4. I've been showing the last couple laps. He's really, arcing in a little bit later and really getting a nice run off turn 4. But a couple laps ago, we saw Richard try to run that line, and it did not work. So Boyd's got a little bit of an advantage right now, 3 and 4, but through 1 and 2, of course, through the bank turn, it's pretty much equal mano-a-mano.
As those 2 are battling each other, we actually had an exchange for 7th, as actually we had a couple of exchanges for position. Joseph Piscota and Brendan Burcroft both moved up to 6th and 7th, moving Zach York back to the 8th position. Zach York is still yet to come to pit road, and now he's going to hit pit lane in that 19 machine. So this is his final pit stop of the day. So now officially everybody can make it the rest of the way on fuel, but we saw that Caden Rush held up the 17. Here's more traffic. That's Ryan Strunk in the 77. Last car 1 lap down in the 12th position.
Yeah, this right now, if you're Richard, you're screaming, you're like, get out of the way, because right now, those lap cars have not been helping you. And Boyd is just breathing down his neck. This is the best we've seen all night. Early in this race, for the first 2 stints, we really didn't have much of a race for the lead, but now as we're getting down to it, all right, this is starting to become a race that I'm really interested in.
Absolutely. As the last 2 drivers to go to victory lane are the 2 that are out in front. Pocono was where Richard Reagan Jr. went to victory lane. Chicagoland was where Boyd Hogan last went to victory lane. And right now is Richard Reagan Jr. trying to go for 2 in a row. Whoa! Did the 22 just disappear and reappear, or did he hit the wall? That was scary for me.
22 car was actually trying to get out of the way, and just the way the tri-oval works, he was up against the wall, and I don't know if the 17 knew he was going to stay up there or come down, but man, that was almost a big moment in turn 1 for the 17 car. These lap down cars are just, trying to make him lose this race, it seems.
It actually allowed Ryan Strunk to move up into the top 10, as both he and Chad Gunnisman are 2 laps down, so move Gunnisman back to 11th. And let's not forget, that the 22 and the 2, they're teammates out of Team Penske. So you almost wonder that if the 22 of Gundersman hadn't gotten out of shape, if he would have tried to have helped
No.
Boyd Hogan out a little bit.
No. Oh, stop it.
No team orders?
I don't think so, no, but but just those. Oh, it's the 17. I don't know if he got loose there, but it looked like he got loose. But I don't think it's team orders. No.
Well, Boyd Hogan still remaining right there within striking distance of Richard Reagan Jr. After getting up to his back bumper, he hasn't fallen back any further than 0.3 of a second. Actually makes a nice charge there through 1 and 2. He's going to close it right back up to about a car length through 3 and 4.
And that 2 car, he's trying to manage the dirty air, and he's running a little bit higher in line. And right there, you saw it right on your screen. That gain through the center of the turn is where Boyd Hogan is just money right now, and he's going to be right on the back bumper as they head into turn 1, looking for the lead even. Down inside Boyd Hogan, side by side through 1 and 2. It's going to be 2 wide off turn 2 for the lead.
Question is, does Richard Reagan Jr. run the risk of trying to pinch the 2 car down there? Because then if he does and Boyd Hogan gets loose, that's maybe the both of them wrecked. As here we go through 3 and 4, Boyd Hogan slides and clears new race leader Boyd Hogan. And here we go. It's not over yet.
Here he comes. Richard's like, no, you're not going to get it that easy. I'm not going to just let you get the lead off turn 4 like that as they go through 1 and 2. But if anyone's going to run the high side, it's going to be Boyd. So, and just not enough. But just watch him in 3 and 4. He's so much quicker right now through the center in 3 and 4. It's not even funny.
You know, you bring up the fact that he's so much better through 3 and 4. The place where he was losing a lot of his ground was 1 and 2. When he finally figured out how to be equal with Richard Reagan Jr. through 1 and 2, that's when he started making his gains.
Yeah, but, you know, it's just the thing is, like, if you're that bad in 1 and 2, you know, we're late enough in this race, it's about 30 to go. Maybe you start chopping the nose off just a bit, saying, no, you're not going to get that run on me down the front straightaway. What are you doing? If you're going to pass me, you do it on the outside to where I don't have to worry about it.
It's interesting, too, because both these guys, they're running right up here in the same vicinity. They both came to pit road on the same laps. They're on an equal set of tires. But the question is, who's used up the most stuff up to this point? Is it Richard Reagan Jr. trying to get away from the 2 car, or is it Boyd Hogan in his attempt to run the 17 down?
Equal. It's been equal this run between the 17 trying to get past these lap cars and Boyd trying to hold on to them. It's been equal. They're both just at the same level of tires right now because right now, here we go off turn 2. Boyd's got another good little run down the back straightaway. He's closed in just a bit. And as they head into turn 3, look how he closes up on the braking zone. Absolutely phenomenal. And he's going to get a good run off turn 4 here. So watch him going into turn 1 and 2. I don't know if it's going to be the big run he had earlier, but it's going to be a good run coming across the line. And indeed, it is a good run. Here he comes.
It's a good run, but will he have enough to be able to peek to the left rear quarter panel into turn 1? He's looking, but he's not quite there to be able to force the 17 up to that second groove. We were on board for a moment there with race leader Richard Reagan Jr. They do have a car that's coming up. That is the last car in the lead lap, Vincent Arthur running in 5th place. But then after that, there's pretty clean racetrack for these two to continue their one-on-one battle.
Oh, and that's fine. That's fine. And he didn't get to, he's poking the noise. He's poking the nose in there, just saying, hey, I'm still here. We had that battle a couple laps ago. I'm still here. Don't forget I'm back here. Just a little bit of mind games maybe from Boyd, absolutely. And, same time, he's actually keeping up with them through the high-banked 1 and 2 where the dirty air might be the worst with these cars. And, if he could just roll 3 and 4 like he did a couple laps ago, he'll be golden.
Play the intimidate factor. Make the 17 remember that you are there on his back bumper. If he thinks more about you than he does about what's going on outside the windshield, you may not even have to worry about battling him. If he makes a mistake, we've seen just how if drivers make mistakes, they lose so much momentum, you blow right on by him and take the race lead that way.
Absolutely. We'll see how the dirty air here from the 24 affects the 17. We saw a couple laps ago as the 17 gets off the bottom a little bit earlier than the 2. 2's got a good run on the back. And we'll see how the dirty air from the 24, depending on what line he takes, affects what car here.
Watching this battle for the race lead, we're not really looking back through the field because there is no battling through the field. This is as good as it gets up here for first and second place, closing in on the 24 of Vincent Arthur, which if they pass him, it's going to leave us with only 4 cars currently running on the lead lap. Caden Rush is 10 seconds back from this battle for the lead. James O'Brien currently about 19 seconds back. So it's really going to come down between our 2 former winners from the last 2 weeks, the 17 of Reagan Jr., the 2 of Boyd Hogan, 20 laps to go.
Yeah, that's not what Boyd needed. The 24 went high there, but he's still got a good run through 3 and 4. But he wanted him to block the
Whoa,
17.
look
But
at this.
yeah, here he comes.
Had a little bit of a draft there off the 24 when he swung it to the outside.
Contact!
Oh, contact!
17 loose.
Richard Reagan Jr. saves it, but all that momentum lost, as well as the race lead, as Boyd Hogan to the front, and the gap continues to increase, now over a second and a half.
Oh, man. Oh, man. Oh, wow. Right on the radio after the 17, he's like, I don't know what you're doing. I don't know if he was talking to the 24 or the 2, but good almighty. What a battle for the lead we just had there. And I tell you what, this 2 car, you better hope that 17 don't get back to him. I know that wasn't purposeful, but oh man, that was 17's got a rage in him now.
Well, let's not forget too that before these two made their pit stops, both on the first and last round, 17 was a little bit better on the long run, and that gap has closed up already. It's already less than half a second between himself and Boyd Hogan, because Hogan hasn't been able to get himself clear of the 24, Vincent Arthur.
And I tell you what, that right now over the scanners, they are absolutely livid at the 24. They're like, what are you doing racing this hard? I get it, he's trying to keep the lap, but this is the battle for the lead with under 20 to go. And now this 24 gets out of the way. Now he relinquishes it, and now it's still 0.2 of a second. That 17 is rebounded just spectacularly in the last 2 laps.
The question is, if you're Richard Reagan Jr., where are you going to go? Because we saw before when Boyd Hogan got around him for the lead, Richard Reagan Jr. crossed him over in turn 4, took the lead back over in turn 1. Now he's got to actually set a pass up himself here on Boyd Hogan.
He does, and this is something we haven't seen the 17 do all night. We have not seen him make the pass. Caution's out. Caution is out, and Caden Rush is sitting there going, yeah, boys.
Oscar Jensen is down against the inside safer barrier off of turn 2. The 20 of Chris Hansen is also on pit road. And there's no doubt, nobody's staying out. If you're staying out, you're an idiot.
Absolutely. You're all coming to the pit lane. As, you know, oh man, what a race!
Absolutely, and it's just warming up. We're under 15 laps to go now, and with Vince and Arthur going a lap down, only 4 drivers currently going to be in the conversation for this win. And we're going to maybe get to see Boyd Hogan versus Richard Reagan Jr. Part 2, but add a third player into the mix, as you mentioned, Caden Rush, right back into the picture now.
Yeah, and I'm you know, we're looking back at this replay here. The 20 and 47, the 20 car gave the 47 absolutely no room into turn 1, just drove him up to the wall. So, I don't know what happened there, but my oh my, did not give the 47 any breaks into turn 1.
It was almost like the 20 car didn't even turn. It was like he just went straight into the corner, and I believe Chris Hansen had been out there somewhere around 35, 36 laps on his tires. I don't necessarily think a tire went down, but certainly you'd have to think probably that right front heated up so much that he wasn't able to make the corner.
Yeah, that's probably what happened, if you want to be honest with you.
That's a tough break there, too, because Oscar Jensen had been doing such a great job here tonight, trying to get himself pointed into the playoffs, and now that's a lot of damage that he had to the right side of his race car, and he actually teleported it to pit road, which is going to make him lose even more positions on track.
Well, money stops down. There goes Boyd Hogan. He's going to beat out Richard Reagan Jr. and Caden Rush. 1, 2, 3 off pit lane. And, you know, this gives a little bit of life back to James O'Brien. We saw him work his way up through the field earlier. Now he's in 4th place late in this race. Equal tires again. Watch James O'Brien here on this restart.
The reason why I said that there's only going to be 4 cars really in the conversation for this, yes, Vincent Arthur does get the free pass, but being the lucky dog, he has to start not only behind the lead lap cars, but all the lap down machines as well. He's going to be the very tail end of the field, and I just get the feeling, you know, we're going to probably get the green closing in on 10 laps to go. I don't think that's enough time for him to be able to cut through the field, get up here to these guys who for sure are going to start gapping the field on this restart.
Yeah, I don't know, but you know, if you're Richard right now, you're sitting there and you're going, "Oh, good Lord!" You know why you're sitting there going, "Oh, good Lord"? Because you know, you might not show up on the broadcast. I don't know how good your graphics are right now, but I'm seeing just a ton of marbles in 1 and 2 on the high side. I mean, it is ridiculous how much marbling is on the high side in 1 and 2. So if you're restarting on this outside, on this restart, you are dreading it in 1 and 2 because it's not far off the racing line that you get in the marbles. And the next thing you know, that's when you start wrecking.
This is interesting here, Warren, because our first caution comes out, closing in on 15 laps to go. Two drivers feel it's not our last caution of the night. Taylor Butcher Benjamin and Brendan Burcroft are going to stay out. They are going to take the wave around. Now, both of them are out there on 38 and 41 lap old tires, but they're expecting that if they take the wave around, get back in the lead lap, there's going to be another quick yellow. They'll be able to come to pit road and get themselves some fresh tires here. And, we're going to be going back green probably with about 11 laps to go. There's every possibility that this restart here is going to be wild, and we may not have seen our last yellow flag of the night.
And with how, I mean, I'm looking at these. Look at these with me. So look at this. 38, 41, 38, 25, 47. That's how long ago some of these drivers who were taking the wave around pitted. They're going to get on these restarts and just, it's going to be an absolute travesty on these first couple corners to try to fight the car. And you know what? Cautions breed cautions here. And, going to turn 3 on 41 lap old tires, woof, I don't want to be that guy.
Absolutely, and you think about it too, there's a bunch of guys back there that are 1 lap down. If we end up getting a caution, they're going to want to be that first car in the free pass position. Joseph Biscotta was just on pit road. He's out there now on fresh tires. Ryan Strunk, Tom Drayling, Chad Gunisman, and Zach York. They're all going to be fighting for that free pass position as well. I believe the 19 of Zach York is actually taking the wave around as well as Gunisman. They were 2 laps down. They'll be to -1. Tom Drayling's going to take the wave around. This would put him at 1 lap down. I believe that's the 34 of Ty Cole. This would put him 5 laps down as he's also going to take the wave around. So we've got about 6-7 cars that are going to take the wave around here.
Yeah, and, we might be looking at the battle for the lead here on this next restart. I'd be looking for the battle for 6th on back because points-wise, look back there, Taylor Butcher Benjamin. Like you said earlier, he's on 42 lap old tires. But if he went from 7th to 6th, and something may happen to Hogan, that's a good points day when you've been running, 12th through 13th for early part of this race. That's a good rebound for the number 11.
Absolutely. Now, I want to go here into your head about Caden Rush because, we saw him play the strategy completely different from our top 2. But we only really got to see the strength of his car with old tires versus fresh tires. We don't really know how his car is going to be stacking up against these two. If we're going to use prior history, we'd have to go all the way back to the very initial start of this race, that first green flag run where he kind of ran status quo with Boyd Hogan. Is there anything you think that he has found now that he'll be able to utilize to get by both the 2 and the 17?
Possibly. And, these drivers with the open setups, they've been making adjustments all night. And, that last pit stop was your final shot to make an adjustment. If you're Caden Rush, as the wave rounds, here we go, we have the one to go to green here. If you're Caden Rush, you're sitting back there, you've made your adjustments, you know what you've got. And if you were able to keep up with the top 2 in that first run, I bet you right now you have the confidence to be able to pass them here late in this race. So I'd watch the 00. And like I said earlier, I'd watch the 15 as well.
The 15, best car on the short run, I would think, based on what we saw back on the first green flag run. He worked his way up about 5 positions on that run, so he's up here in the mix as well. You see those cars back behind them like Ty McWhirter, Joseph Biscotta. They are all lap down machines. Vincent Arthur right now is the free pass car, and I think he's waiting for everybody to come around. Actually, I'm not sure if the free pass car is going to get to start ahead of the wave around machines or not. If he is, then that's actually not a bad starting position for him to be. But, based off of what we saw before, when Boyd Hogan and Richard Reagan Jr. were having issues with him trying to stay on the lead lap, if he gets up there, I don't think they're going to give him a heck of a lot of room.
I wouldn't give him room. So, yeah, they're definitely not going to give him room. But, yeah, this is going to be one heck of a restart, folks. Tighten it down, buckle it up. We got now under 10 laps to go at the line. And it's all Boyd Hogan. He's elected to take the high side here on the restart, so maybe we'll see what happens here.
Look at how James O'Brien is right on his back bumper as the green flag is out. Hogan going to try and see if he can clear the 17 of Richard Reagan Jr. by the time they get to turn 1. Yep, he will. So he'll take the race lead, and that
Look
actually,
at that.
contact! The third position. Ryan was sent up the track there, courtesy of Caden Rush.
Caden Rush is on a mission. He just pulled what I would call a Keselowski move on the 15 car, and now he's on the outside of Richard Reagan Jr., going to roll around the high side. He's going to get past him for second off turn 4.
At that run as he pinched the 17 down to the inside, and now all over the back bumper here of Boyd Hogan. You look at him right here, the 2, the 00, the 17. They are the last 3 drivers to go to victory lane in the last 4 weeks, and they're trying to settle it out here tonight at Kentucky.
Boyd gets off turn 2 nice, but he doesn't block the high side from the 00. Lets him have it. Here comes Richard now. 3-car battle for the lead in turn 3. 00, Caden, round the outside. He's going to get equal. Door-to-door off turn 4.
Can't block both lanes down the back straightaway. Hogan thought it was better to block Richard Reagan Jr., but Caden Rush led that lap. He's now half a car length advantage on that top side going into 1 and 2.
Here comes Boyd back down to the bottom again. Clears to 00. Richard looking for some. He's saying, no, don't go away from me. I'm still here. It's a 3-car breakaway for the lead heading into turn 3. James O'Brien now about a second back as here comes Caden, going to reverse it down to the bottom off turn 4, almost making contact with the 2.
As these 3 continue to race it up, that's actually bringing James O'Brien back into the conversation here. So if these 3 make contact with each other, James O'Brien maybe will sneak past all of them and say, thank you very much. I'll take my first win and my first start.
Yes, that's definitely an opportunity here if these 3 wreck it up. But Boyd Hogan has absolutely done a great job of holding off Caden Rush. And credit to his name, he's rushing right now. He's trying to get past Boyd as we're coming down to just under 6 laps to go here at Kentucky. Boyd Hogan, Caden Rush, Richard Reagan Jr., James O'Brien, and Vincent Arthur, your top 5.
Boyd Hogan may have been close to brushing the wall there as he really rode it wide off of turn 4 onto the front straightaway. We ran 135 laps clean and green before our first caution, our only caution up to this point. If we're going to see another one, I think we look no further than up here at the front, just the way these guys are racing.
Absolutely, and Caden Rush has got a absolute monster under his hood right now. He's rolling 3 and 4 just like Boyd was a couple laps earlier before the caution. So he's rolling the center of 3 and 4 just fine, but Boyd knows exactly where to block it. And look at Caden, he's looking high yet again in 1 and 2.
Look at these guys here, the 2, the 00, the 17. All of them have been to victory lane. Right now, Caden Rush and Boyd Hogan locked into the playoffs. Reagan's trying to make the number of starts to qualify into that, but the fact that all of these guys have gone to victory lane already, now what they're doing is they're trying to duke it out with each other for playoff points here when the regular season comes to an end.
And your top 4 is not more than a second apart. Any mistake from either one of them is going to be result in a loss or gain of position. So this is coming down to the wires. We're about 4 laps to go here, coming off turn 2, and it's about an equal gap of about 0.2 of a second to each car.
Things have kind of equaled out for the moment. As soon as I say that, Caden Rush drives it deep into turn 3, closes what was a 2-car length advantage up to about a car length, but then has to give up some time off of turn 4, and really surprised we haven't seen Richard Reagan Jr. be able to get back up here, because out of these 4 cars, he has seemed to have the best car, whether he's running in traffic or out in front. He was able to put the bumper to Boyd Hogan just before that caution came out, trying to take the race lead back, but now he is mired back in the 3rd position after he dominated the first 2/3 of this race.
And I said it earlier, and I said it earlier, and I'll say it earlier again. I said it was going to take a caution for Boyd Hogan to win this race. And, you know, true to my theory, I'm right, because here he is. He's opening up now half a second lead as second is about to heat up between Caden Rush and Richard Reagan Jr.
Time and laps are running out for these guys who are going to see who's going to be in the runner-up spot. Richard Reagan Jr. almost into the left rear corner panel of Caden Rush coming off of turn 2. He'll drive it deep into turn 3, but he is too far back. Even if he clears the 00 off here off of 4, I don't think he's within striking distance to be able to reel in Boyd Hogan, who's going to see the white flag.
White flag in the air. Last lap here at Kentucky. Caden Rush now gets a little bit of advantage for second place. That's where the main battle is right now for the second place. Here comes Richard Reagan. Good battle. He's going to clear Caden off turn 2. Let's see if Caden dives in turn 3.
Boyd Hogan sets sail for turns 3 and 4. This second place battle is going to be the good one coming to the line as now James O'Brien joins it, makes it a 3-way fight. They remain single file off the corner though. And win number 7 for Boyd Hogan here this evening will take place at the Kentucky Speedway. Definitely to your point, the caution was what helped him out. I also think that Richard Reagan Jr. will not be sending Vincent Arthur a Christmas card this year, but still a good run for him in second. Caden Rush there in third. No doubt about it. If you think about it, going all the way back to the start of this race, your fastest 4 drivers of the race finished up here in the top 4.
And I was looking just after the checkered flag there for the leaders. It was still a race on for 6. Taylor Butcher Benjamin just almost got 6th place from Brendan Burkhoff, but Brendan Burkhoff does finish 6th, and Taylor Butcher Benjamin does finish 7th, your points leader here at Kentucky.
Well, Boyd Hogan certainly knows how to do a burnout. He's done it 6 times before. He's about to do it a 7th. Coming into this race, Boyd Hogan has been able to accumulate, I believe now, 18 playoff points. And he'll continue to add to that here this evening with his 7th trip to victory lane. And tonight, if you think about with this one as opposed to what we've seen for most of this season, this was one Boyd Hogan absolutely had to earn.
Oh, he had to earn it on every sense of the word. He had to earn it earlier. He had to earn it on pit lane. And his restart skills, absolutely on point. That was a fantastic final restart and a well-deserved win from Boyd Hogan. But what could have been for Richard Reagan Jr.?
I think he's going to have to tell his crew to maybe push him to pit road. I think that engine may have just gone south underneath that Ford Mustang, but they'll definitely be willing to push him to victory lanes. We'll look at the rest of the finishing results from tonight's event. James O'Brien, what a great debut there for the 15 car, bringing it home in 4th place. Vincent Arthur finishes in 5th. And to your point, with Brendan Burkhoff and Taylor Butcher and Benjamin that duking it out for that 6th position, that call to stay on or to take the wave around and be on the lead lap. Yeah, they finished 21 seconds back, but it helped them to be able to gain positions on guys that decided not to take the wave around and stay 1 lap down.
Absolutely. That paid big dividends in points when you think about it. Regular season championship for Taylor. Sure, Boyd just got another win, but Taylor's trying to at least do some damage control, and 7th place is not bad when you think about where he was running earlier in this race.
Might be wrong, but I believe it's 10 playoff points if you win the regular season championship. So if you consider the fact that Boyd Hogan has had to go to victory lane 6 times in order to accumulate 18 points, if Taylor Butcher Benjamin is able to just finish out the regular season as the regular season champion without going to victory lane, he has cut that points lead down by more than half as the rest of the top 10. Joseph Piscota brings it home 8th. So certainly a good consistent run for him as he's been on a roll lately. Tom Drayling, he was one of the drivers, along with Ryan Strunk, that went with the 3-stop strategy, and he's able to still bring it home inside of the top 10 and 9th.
Yeah, that was fantastic. And you go back to 10th place and a little bit farther on back, you got Zach York, Ryan Strunk. Ryan Strunk with that awkward, multiple pit stop strategy. Kind of worked out for him earlier, but, later in this race, it didn't work out for him. And you go farther back, and you look back at 15th, Oscar Jensen. What a shame. When you think about the bubble and points, this is not the night he needed. When you think about the other drivers he's fighting right now, weren't even here.
Absolutely. He came in 17 points behind Spencer Tart. Chris Hansen, who is another driver that he is somewhat within striking distance of, about 40 points behind for the 15th spot in the standings. Now, I don't know if Spencer Tart's going to take some provisional points here tonight or not, but Oscar Jensen, what could have been as he spent most of this race up just in the vicinity of maybe 10th, 11th place. Certainly not what he was looking for. He and Hansen were actually the only caution of the evening, and that came out late in this race on lap 135. And of course, another driver out of the race was Larry Reed, as he had an issue, I believe it was during the first round of green flag pit stops. He will finish last car in the field in the 17th position. But let's get some words here with our top 3 finishers, and we're going to kick things off with Starcom Racing's driver Caden Rush. Caden, it's Warren and Seth up here in the Flatout Racing Network studios. You got us?
Yes, sir.
Well, the last time we saw you, you were celebrating in victory lane at Sonoma. Right in the conversation for it here after that late race yellow. What, if anything, did you need just a little bit more of to be able to get around that 2-car?
Ah, man. Well, first off, we that first run we fired off really, really good, and we were really close to Boyd and Richard both. We went a little bit longer. The race went green a whole 150 laps, which was crazy. And I kind of regret going longer on that first stint. Kind of put us on the back foot for those last 2 stints after that. Just firing off there on that last restart. I came down pit road, put 4 on it. Under fuel just a little bit. Tried to get the car to fire off just a little bit more tight. We've been kind of fighting loose all night. Kind of seemed like everybody was. I think I just put a little bit. Didn't put enough fuel in it. Just got too tight near the end there, and just lost on the outside. And those two both, I mean, they pulled off the same pass on me down at 1 and 2, and they were just insane tonight. So really props to them.
Go ahead, Warren.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, man, we're up here, and I'm the one who's always questioning the strategy calls from drivers, and I'm sitting here in the booth going, "What is he doing?" He's stretching this car out a long time, but it paid off for you later in this race, and congratulations on that. But let's talk about that final restart. You made a gutsy move to make it 3 wide there, and from the scanner audio, there was a little bit of a scrunch from the 15 car. Was that your plan the whole time to make it 3 wide, or was that just the heat of the moment?
Nah, it was just kind of the moment. I mean, I maybe justifiably he can be angry. I haven't taken a look at it, but there was a hole there. I mean, he has the right to justifiably be angry about it. Really, it's all about just at the end there. You're all fighting for spots, and you get a good restart. You fire off real good, better than the second place guy, and you see a hole to the outside. You try and take it. I wasn't gonna force it had it not been there. I ended up backing out of it once I realized that maybe I wasn't fully able to make the move. So I didn't want to cause a wreck or anything. I just wanted to take a peek and see if I could maybe get there. I couldn't. So I personally, for me, I'm just going to leave it there. It was just a racing deal. We were all just really fighting hard there at the end.
Caden, people that watch iRacing broadcast maybe don't really fully comprehend just what you drivers go through. You've got the physical aspect where you're turning that wheel for 160 circuits. You got the mental where you're trying to figure out fuel strategy. You're trying to figure out pit strategy. You're trying to make sure you hit your marks. But there's also the emotional side. Before that caution came out, you were running about 6-7 seconds behind the top 2, not really gaining a whole lot of time. Then that yellow comes out. You're going to get a restart there with 10 laps to go. What kind of a wave of emotion goes over a driver like that, realizing, wow, all of a sudden I'm back in the conversation?
Yeah, so I had actually realized that if I wanted a chance at the win, I would have had to kind of short pit that second run, kind of run it short, and then run long to the end if I wanted a chance. And like you said, we were 6-7 seconds back. We just had about 14 to 15 lap older tires, and I was thinking, hey, everybody's kind of spaced out. We're not really going to get a yell here. Maybe a self spinner, if there is going to be a yell at all. Really, I was pretty excited. I was a little bit timid because I didn't know how the car was going to fire off compared to everybody around me. I knew that the front 2 were a little bit better. I knew James and Vincent were both kind of there, but Vincent was kind of behind 2 other lap cars. Didn't really see how James fired off all night. Me, Regan, and Boyd all just pulled away on that first stint. So in a way, I was kind of excited, but I was also just kind of timid. Just wanted to make sure that nothing crazy happened.
Well, obviously, we know that tonight you were not only looking for your second victory, but you were looking to also continue to build off playoff points after your victory back at Sonoma. But, we're getting down to the very end of this regular season. There's only about 5-6 races left to go. What's the mindset going into those races? Is it the continuation of going out there, trying to get wins, trying to get the bonus points, or is it more trying to have consistent runs to have that momentum when the playoffs begin?
Yeah, I wouldn't really say it's much about playoff points or building on the point tally. Really, we had this discussion, me and my teammates. We just want to build some strong runs coming in here. We want to try to figure some things out. We figured something out tonight. Clearly, we were just as fast as the two lead guys, and really it's just all about building up and hoping we can get the momentum, figure things out. I feel like with some people not showing up tonight or maybe showing up later, we're about a 4th, 5th place car just every week. I'd say guys that are definitely better than us that we need to try and get ahead of: Boyd, Richard, and Tyler. He wasn't here tonight. Pretty notable absence. Really, we just got to try and get closer to those guys, and we did that tonight. And I think I'm really proud of all my teammates for helping me out this week.
Well, obviously, Caden, tremendous run here this evening. You put on a great show for us there in that final 10-lap shootout. And we're going to let you do some shout-outs now.
I just want to thank Michael Carey Media, Grayson Sullivan, everybody at Flying Arrows, Zach Dork, my teammate. Just want to give a huge shout out to Oscar Jensen. He got a really good opportunity to move up to a pretty big team, and looking to hoping he can do better in the future. So just glad that everybody could help me out on the setup this week, and we all just did a really good job.
That's Caden Rush. He brings it home P3 here tonight at the Kentucky Speedway. Congrats on the great run. Go enjoy it.
Thank you.
Let's see if we can get second place finisher here, Richard Reagan Jr. Richard, it's Warren and Seth up here in the Flatout Racing Network studios. You got us?
Yeah, man.
Well, 2 weeks ago, we talked to you in Victory Lane at Pocono. It was looking like tonight we may be talking to you to Victory Lane here in Kentucky, but the timing of that late race yellow kind of throwing a little bit of a curveball here for you. You restarted that race from the inside of row one in second place. What was there that you needed to do to be able to get by that 2-car again? Because on the long run, it looked like you and he were either equal or you just had a little bit slight advantage on speed.
Yeah, me and Boyd are teammates. Not in this league, so called. I mean, I'm on Roush and he's on Penske, but we work together all week making sets and stuff. So, I basically told him, I'm like, hey, if you give me the bottom lane on the restart, I'll make sure you're clearing one, just so I don't get freight trained. So, you know, that's just how the race goes sometimes. I mean, it doesn't matter how many laps you lead, you gotta lead the last lap. And it sucks that we led so many laps, and I was kind of hoping that last caution wasn't going to come out, because I did get a little bit of damage from the contact, and I knew I wasn't going to be able to fire off as good as Boyd and Caden were going to be able to, and I just barely got Caden coming to take the white flag. So, it was a good race. So we're going to carry this momentum to next week.
Yeah, it was a great race for you there, Richard. We were watching you lead basically 80% of this race, and getting down to about 30 laps to go, that's when you and Hogan's decided to start racing hard. You had that little bit of a contact there. I know that was a racing deal. It wasn't anybody's fault. But the fact that you were able to rebound from that was absolutely spectacular, even though I believe at that point you had it wrecked. But that was a great save. But I'm going to go back to that just before that restart. When the caution came out, what was going through your mind? Were you saying, oh my goodness, here we go? Or was it a sigh of relief that, you had another shot at it?
Yeah, I was definitely saying, oh God, here we go. Because I didn't want to see it, because, with the little bit of damage on these cars, especially on the right front, the right side is everything on these cars. So, if you get a little bit of damage, it will slow you down a little bit in the corner, and it'll really slow you down in the straightaway. So if the car was any worse, I would have been really in a bad spot, because I would have got freight trained on the restart with all the cars being bunched up and everything. So we were able to chase Boyd back down after the contact. He got stuck battling a lap car. So, it was going to be exciting to see where that was going to go.
Richard, obviously with the low downforce package that these Cup cars have, at 1.5 mile track, we wouldn't necessarily think that traffic is a huge factor, but we saw a couple of instances with the 00, with the 24, with some other drivers that were trying to stay on the lead lap or had the fresher tires going around you, where it seemed like those were times when drivers running in second place behind you were starting to gain time. Your car obviously was really good out there in clean air, but how was it in the dirty air battling with traffic?
Yeah, the dirty air is a big problem with these cars. It definitely tightens up the car. Whenever I got stuck behind that bubble of a lap car, Boyd was able to reel me back in. And like you said, as soon as I got the clean air, I was able to pull away again. So, he had to deal with that bubble on me all night. So, I can't fire off as fast as Boyd can. I don't know what he does on short run to be able to have that much speed, but I was able to save my tire more than him, almost about 10% all night. So that's where I was getting my long run speed from. So, like I said, next week I'm pretty sure we go to New Hampshire. So that's a very driver dependent track. We got the 900 horsepower and the low downforce next week. So I'm excited to see what we do next week.
Obviously, you have a lot of momentum booking the 4th of July weekend. You took that checkered flag back at Pocono. You finished second place here tonight. And we're going to let you do some shout outs now, Richard.
Yeah, I got to thank, first and foremost, Boyd Hogan and everyone at Bobby Dale and Hart Legacy Esports for all the time that they put into these setups and driver development and everything. I got to thank my sponsors, athletebooker.com, Butt Kicker, Bruiser Racewear, um, Multiple Sclerosis Society, Susan G. Coleman, and everyone else, Neonism, everyone that tunes in. And we're going to go after it next week.
That's Richard Reagan Jr. He heads into New Hampshire with a lot of momentum, finishing second place here tonight at Kentucky. Congrats on a great run. We look forward to talking to you next week. And let's get our race winner, Boyd Hogan's 7th win of the season. It takes place here tonight at Kentucky Speedway. Boyd, it's Warren and Seth up here in the Flatout Racing Network studios. You got us?
Yeah, I got you.
I want to go back to the past 4 Speedway races that we've seen you in. Charlotte dominated, 139 laps led. Kansas, 77 laps led. Michigan, you finished second, but you led 79 laps, and then Chicago led 77 laps. But Warren and I were talking about, as opposed to those races, tonight was one where you really had to earn it. And with that caution coming out, was that the deciding factor for you?
No, I don't think the caution really changed too much of what the outcome was going to be. I think we kind of finished where I was at least hoping we were going to finish if it went green to the end. But yeah, no, it's been a good run on the speedway races for sure. It's always good to see everybody running up front. It was. How about Richard, man? Like, he was hauling ass all night. That was awesome. It's good to see the hard work that he puts in paying off. He's usually somebody I can rely on to put on a run about whenever I need one. Just working on setups, and he had a good bit of feedback for the Kentucky car just before the race, and we got it dialed. Like, we were a little bit off all week, and to come in and be as fast as we were, and I started from the back. Richard just held the fort up front all night, and I thought when I got to him, it was gonna be a little bit easier to pass. I was hoping, at least, and no, man, he was killing everybody all night.
Yeah, that was one heck of a charge through the back on that first stint. Well done on that. We were saying how you might have to work strategy, but we threw that piece of paper out the window really quickly when about 10 laps in the race there you were at P3. But yeah, Boyd, I gotta say right now, excellent race. In that final 30 laps, you really opened it up. Was it an adjustment you made on the final stop? Was it just you knew you were quicker in 3 and 4? Because through 3 and 4, your car was something else.
Yeah, I mean, we had. I think it was actually something that Richard did to his car, because I didn't really touch mine most of the night. He made a quick tire pressure adjustment in the right front just to get a little bit more cut through the center, because we were pretty tight through the center most of the night. And I kind of left it because I figured, the track's going to come back to us, and we were already pretty free off, so I didn't want to mess with it too much. And I know he did something just to get a little bit more drive up off, and it ended up hurting his car a little bit, I think. So no, it wasn't anything, changing anything to do with the setup. Once I got to him and got close enough to see the line that he was running, I started, exploring and seeing if I could find something else. Because I mean, the dirty air is just terrible here. Like, between here and Texas, this is probably the 2 worst tracks for aero push and whatnot. So I mean, you got to get creative just to try to set up passes. Let alone, when you got a guy on the same setup as you or something very, very similar on pace, it's you get into this bubble that's like a half a second to a second away from them, and then you can't get any closer unless they make a mistake. And that's something, like I was saying about Richard, man. He was on it all night. He didn't slip up once, didn't make any mistakes, and just, it was a dogfight down to the end, and it was awesome. It was probably the best race that I've been in since I've been in the league, and glad we could pull it out for sure.
Oh, sorry, Seth.
Go ahead.
Just one quick extra thing. We were talking about this in the broadcast. We were surprised you didn't short pit any of those green flag pit stops. Was that your thought, or were you going to short pit, and then, like I said, were you braking and then seeing Richard breaking ahead and you go, oh, come on?
No. Richard and I were pretty well on the same page in terms of when we were pitting. Obviously being teammates. Both in the league and outside of the league, we've kind of we work really well together. So it was we'd bounce ideas off of each other, and then decide on a certain lap, and I'd just try to make up whatever I could to close the gap getting on the pit road, and that was kind of just see where we come out from there. But no, for the most part, I mean, Caden was really, really close on pace. He was maybe half a tenth to a tenth off, and the way the cars are is like, all your pace is right. Lap 20 to lap 60 of the run. The car can run the same lap times from lap 20 to lap 60, no matter what you do. And so wherever you level out is just kind of where you are in comparison to everybody else, and with where we were leveling out in comparison to him, it was about a tenth a lap. So we figure, there's no need for short pitting when we know for the most part we've got a lot of the field covered in terms of the long run pace. So it wasn't any kind of desperate moves or anything like that necessary for us for sure.
Well, that was going to be my question as well, Warren. So I don't have a new one. So Boyd, we're going to let you do some shout outs now.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I got to thank Jacob Shorba for putting on the league, Shorba's Racing Graphics, Soda Guys for sponsoring the Cup Series, FSM Customs, all their partners for sure. Everybody at Bobby Earnhardt's Legacy Esports, man. They the support that I've gotten from those guys over the course of the last 5 or 6 months has been absolutely incredible, and love all those guys. Richard, obviously, for running the laps before the race and helping me dial the setup in. Same thing with James O'Brien. Chad obviously had a pretty solid Q set for us. I think we had a couple guys qualify up top 5, so that was good. Got to thank Oculus Glasses, Butt Kicker, Judd at Abruzzi, GTR Simulator, Rogue Energy. Use code Reaper96, get yourself 20% off of Rogue Energy. It's a phenomenal brand. Kept me awake for sure. Just everybody involved over at Legacy Esports, Slip Angle, Dustin Hall. Always try to make a point of thanking him. Dustin Johnson, Travis Manning. I mean, I kind of put out the base setup earlier on in the week, and they took it, ran with it, and evidently tonight it was pretty well on point.
Definitely was. Boyd Hogan in victory lane for the 7th time here this season. Continues to rack up the playoff points with only 6 races remaining in the regular season. Congrats on a great run here tonight. Go enjoy your victory.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for always putting on a good show. Appreciate you.
And that is going to conclude our coverage here tonight from the Kentucky Speedway. I mean, Warren, Kentucky, a lot of times we expect the long green flag runs, but were we expecting one this long?
Yes and no. Knowing the, just what this league, watching some of the old races from the season, the green flag run was inevitably going to happen. But at the beginning of this race, it was kind of interesting that it was at the beginning of the race. Usually it's the back end. You usually get your cautions out of the way early, and then they go for a green flag run. So it was nice to see a reverse of that. But no, not surprising at all.
Certainly a finish worth sticking around for there. That late race yellow set us up for a great 4-way battle there in the final 10 laps, but Boyd Hogan comes out on top. Win number 7 for him, as he'll carry this momentum next week into the Magic Mile New Hampshire Motor Speedway. About a mile in length and not a whole lot of banking for these drivers to deal with. I think that Caden Rush spoke perfectly about it when he said that it's really a driver track.
And don't forget also, next week at New Hampshire, it is the low downforce package. So it will be a little bit less downforce on these cars and a little bit more horsepower. So it's really going to be a driver's track for sure.
Should be a good one, as both the Rapid Fire Pizza National Series as well as the Soda Guys Cup Series will be taking that week at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Be sure to tune in to both those races. Rapid Fire Pizza Series is going to be on Friday. Green flag to fly at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then the following Saturday, you'll see the Soda Guys Cup Series drivers back at the New Hampshire Motor Speedway as well. They will be taking their green at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time as well. Well, Warren, you and I, we've broadcasted before over on the NR side. It's been a blast to have you here on the iRacing side tonight.
It's just good to be back in the booth, honestly. It's great to be back.
Thanks to everybody that tuned in to tonight's race. We hope that you enjoyed it. For Warren Keith, I'm Seth Cole. Thanks for tuning in to another broadcast courtesy of the Flatout Racing Network. Bye.